Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy Straight shooting a review of The Wizard of Oz. This is the undisputed classic 1939 film adaptation of L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which is a very well-known children's book series. With this film reaching its 80th anniversary this year, I thought there was no better time for me to talk about one of my favorite films of all time, and something I consider one of the greatest children's films ever created, The Wizard of Oz. This film has been celebrated for such a long time because of how purely magical it is as a cinematic experience. Because the film starts out with a sepia tone, which I like to call beige and white. And that's true, it does look beige and white instead of black and white. And I find this art direction to be masterful when it comes to The Wizard of Oz, especially that we see a great deal of beige and white within the first 30 minutes of the film. And right after the tornado scene is when The Wizard of Oz became iconic for its use of Technicolor, when we see a rich color palette within the wonderful world of Oz. Technicolor, which is a color processing technique for film, is a thing of the past. But back when The Wizard of Oz came out, I can only imagine that people were very surprised in how colorful the film looked. And by the time that we see color in The Wizard of Oz is when the film is just pure magic until the very end. I have watched this quite a number of times and I cannot get enough of The Wizard of Oz. This is a film I love coming back to just for the magic of how this film turned out. And it's not just impressive with its use of Technicolor, there are other factors of why I love The Wizard of Oz and why it's one of my favorite films of all time. I probably should talk about the music next because the songs in The Wizard of Oz are iconic. They're unforgettable, especially Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And whenever I revisit The Wizard of Oz, there's that one song by the Cowardly Lion that always gives me a good laugh.
If I were king of the forest.
Here's my take. If I were king of the forest. Okay. Wow, that was terrible. Even Noir, my cat, found it bad. I especially remember If I Only Had a Heart, which is another great song in The Wizard of Oz. And it really goes to show you, not only are the songs iconic because they have stayed for generations, they're also really catchy. Especially the catchiest song, without a doubt, hands down, is We're Off to See the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And it really goes to show you that classic musical films are much better than modern musical film. While I may have never read a single book within the Wonderful Wizard of Oz series, this 1939 iconic film adaptation makes me want to read those books now. And that's because I love the characters in The Wizard of Oz. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, even Dorothy herself. Now, while it was great discovering the wonderful world of Oz and revisiting it numerous times, there is one thing. Do you ever hate how they reveal at the end of the story that this was all just a dream? Well, this film has it. And I'm actually content with it. This film's goal was to captivate the imagination and wonder of its audience. At least, that is my impression because of how long this film has endured. And I love The Wizard of Oz because of its characters, the songs, and I even love the art direction from sepia tone to Technicolor and then back to sepia tone for the ending of the film. The Wizard of Oz is well acted, well sung, well shot, has great sets, great visual effects for 1939, and as I've already said before, it is purely magical. If you love film, The Wizard of Oz is essential. It is required viewing. If you have not seen The Wizard of Oz, what are you doing here? My review is not going to do this film justice. Watching the film will. You understand why I love this film to high heaven. Well, since I'm a guy and I refuse to wear ruby slippers, I'm going to clap my hands instead. you know what, this doesn't have the same effect. You know what my rating is going to be. I'm going to be shooting a 10 out of 10 for The Wizard of Oz. And that's my review of The Wizard of Oz. And yeah, my rating of this film was quite predictable, seeing as how I have stated at the beginning of this review that this is one of my favorite films of all time. So go figure. I'm going to be reloading for my next review, so until then, I'll see you later.